Alright, welcome back to another episode. Today I thought we could look at some scenes from a couple of different movies and look at the lighting setups and try and take some educated guesses on how they were shot and lit with some of the behind the scenes footage that we've got as well. These are all totally different movie scenes, but these are some of the lights and techniques that I try and use myself when I can. And I think it's just nice to see people, at the top of their game and try and work out how they did it. Alright, so this first one is from Judas and the Black Messiah, shot by Sean Bobbitt. So this is the scene. They come into this room. There's a conversation, this main conversation. Then they leave. There's actually quite a lot of shots in here, but looking through the behind the scenes footage and the lighting setups are actually quite minimal and achievable. It looks like they shot this scene on 2 cameras and it's played out on this side of the line, besides from an insert shot or 2 from some reactions. And those cameras probably do about 7 or 8 different shots from that position on different people and different focal lengths. And we can see this is what looks like an 8x8 frame with something behind it. I'm not sure what it could be, maybe a HMI, a sky panel or 2. But either way, they've got a grid on it, then this cutter along the bottom to stop the light spilling out and controlling it a bit more. So that light is key lighting him. Then we have another light up on the balcony, which looks like a Source 4 Leica, and that's backlighting him, but it's also lighting our other character. And that big 8x8 light is also backlighting our second character. And it's interesting to see how someone like Sean Bobbitt uses that, because I know a lot of people who would think that's quite harsh to have a light like that strong on the balcony just shining down on his face. But in the context of the scene, it works great, especially with the grade as well. And that's just a hard light going straight into that guy. There's no diffusion in front of it, and it still looks great. Then at the end of the scene, they walk out and we get this reverse shot, the camera in this position. And we can see where that light frame would have been. I assume this would have been repurposed and pushed along the side. Maybe up on that balcony, because it's quite high and soft. Then I also assume they would have turned off that Leica light at the top. So it's just that soft source coming from camera left. So for this whole scene, they're only really doing 2 or 3 different lighting setups. With all of these shots, and that's just good planning, really. This next scene that I chose is from a movie called The Gentleman, shot by Alan Stewart. So the scene is, there's 2 guys, they come into this room, Matthew McConaughey is sitting at this table, they sit down, there's a conversation had, he shoots at them, then there's a bit of a fight on the ground and the table goes up in the air. So we can see that this scene plays out from this side of the line, and with the behind the scenes footage you can see the light, the wall of light really is coming from that one side, and it looks like a bunch of 4x4 frames of diffusion with lights behind them, and there's cutters in between, sort of shape it for each person but keep it off the walls and control it a little bit more. But what I thought was really interesting about this scene is that they've got this top light above the table shooting down and bouncing up and lighting them. And I like to use that quite a lot as well, because I think it just looks really nice having table and then glowing up on their face. But what I think is interesting is that it just looks like a regular tungsten parcan, which is like one of the cheapest lights that you can get. And they're so light, it's a little old theatre light, and you can put it on the end of that boom arm, and it looks like they've got a full blue gel on there because it is a tungsten light. And then when the table gets flipped up, you can see that it's still on. Then for these 2 guys here, you can see what's backlighting them is what looks like a big 12x12 frame of, full grid or something, and then a light behind that, and that's coming in from that room and giving them that edge light. You could try and use, 2 smaller lights to edge light them, but because there's so much movement with them fighting and moving on the ground, it's better to have a bigger light and push it further back, because you would be constantly moving those lights all the time if you had little lights on stands. So it's better to have a bigger light and just push it further back. There's no negative fill needed on that dark side because there's that green wall there and it's just quite dark. If that was like a white wall, you might have to put, a wall of black material there to add that contrast back into it. But again, that's what's great about having good looking locations, that they do a lot for you. And we've also got these two profile shots here, and that's where that wall of light would have been. So I assume they would have split those lights and moved them either side. That might have been why they had the 4x4 frames, so they could break it up, and they knowing that they were going to get this shot and put half of them behind him and half of them in front of him. So he's getting backlit on the back and then sort of backlit on his front side as well. Does that make sense? Backlit, because it's still coming from behind, but it's lighting his face. Alright, this is just a little scene I thought was interesting from the movie First Man, shot by Linus Sandgren. I think that's how you say it. It's just a little two-hander conversation, but I think it's interesting how minimal the lighting is. So from the behind-the-scenes footage, we can see that she walks in, the camera follows her, but I don't think that actually makes it into the movie. Then we can see here how this was lit. They've turned off the house light because that would be too toppy and maybe not bright enough as well and not the right color temperature. And they've put their own light into the ceiling. It's either attached in there or it's taped up there, or that tape's acting like a bit of a cutter, so it's keeping it on them and not spilling too much onto the walls. And the camera plays on this side of the line for the two shots. And there's not much else going on outside. There might be a big light out there acting like a bit of a moonlight that we catch every now and then as the camera pans by. But what's also interesting is there's a little light underneath the desk, and that's what's kind of recreating that light that's coming from the lamp, the desk lamp. But what's great is the light that catches in her eye from that. It really fits the scene quite well, that glow underneath her eye, as she's quite pissed off at him. It works well. And there's not much else going on in the hallway, it's just practical lamps as she walks down. Yeah, that's it. Alright, cool. I think this stuff is quite helpful for seeing how other filmmakers light scenes and where they put the camera. But let me know if this is something that you guys are interested in as well, because I like to do this stuff myself anyway, and I'll share more of it if you guys are interested in it. Alright, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.